Our definition of home changes throughout our lives and it expands throughout our lives and it may encompass multiple places. And so there's really, yeah, there's a lot of space to move around in there.
Welcome to We're Moving to Europe. It's a podcast for you if you're an American who's curious or serious about moving to a country in Europe. I'm Casey Kelly. I moved from Texas to Portugal a little over 2 years ago after my young adult kids moved to Sweden and the Netherlands, and now we're helping other Americans research and plan their moves to different countries in Europe without stressing out, wasting money, or losing time. If you want to move somewhere in Europe and you aren't sure yet how to make it happen, you're in the right place. Hey, today we're talking with Abigail Somma, an American-born three-time expat. She's lived in Spain, Italy, and for the last, 9 years, she's lived in Austria, where she leads Gratitude Buddies, which is an international online community, and I guess an in-person community as well, where they do skill swaps, mindful networking, and building a gratitude practice. So Abbie's joining us today to talk about the mindset aspect of moving to a new country, especially the role that mindfulness, intentionality, and gratitude play in adjusting to a new culture and creating community in your new home. So, Abbie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Casey. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to be talking to you about this.
Yeah. It's a really interesting story because you've moved to so many places and you've had that experience of establishing community multiple times. So tell us a little bit about your background, when you moved to different countries and when you made it to Austria.
Sure. So twice, two times, I guess actually I could say I'm a four-time expat because I've lived in
Wow.
Spain on two different occasions. Twice I was a student. So I was a student in Sevilla in Spain and then also in Bologna, Italy. And then I
Mhm.
spent a little bit over a year working at the American School in Madrid. That was after college. And then 9 years here in Vienna, Austria, which was really unexpected and feels much more like a move, which has much more the sense of, oh, okay, do I live here now? Is this my home? And so yeah, it's been a little bit of had a different shade, I would say.
Oh, wow. Was that just because of the circumstances of the move, or was it moving from Southern Europe to Northern Europe?
So I was moving from New York City and I ended up having twins and then just found that the culture of the US, but also really the culture of New York City at the time in regards to work, in regards to expenses, it was just really hard to raise your kids there. And I wanted to have more time with them and I wanted them to be closer to the grandparents who are Austrian. And so that's how we ended up coming here.
Nice. So then when did you start Gratitude Buddies? Was that after you moved to Austria?
Yeah, so then I guess that's a little bit my expat journey, and this is my professional journey looks a little different. So I did get my master's in international relations and economics, and I had followed a career path working at the World Bank and the UN and similar institutions. And at some point, I was just struggling in my career in life in general. And this was in my late 20s. And discovered a meditation class that really resonated with me. So I stayed for about 5 years. And then after my kids were born, I decided to become a trainer. And then I guess I had a community, a meditation community throughout the pandemic because, the need was sort of people were looking more. I think actually I
Yeah.
was going to do a class in New York right before I was visiting, right before the pandemic started. Like one or two people signed up, and then we had to move it
Mm,
online because of the pandemic, and it was like
yeah.
20 people were there. So things changed
Oh,
a lot.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, an opening, if you will. And so after that, I guess what happened was I wanted to put the community together as meditation buddies. I was doing other work and I felt like gratitude was a little more accessible to them. And so I sent out a message, who would like to be a gratitude buddy? And the answers that I got back were really touching. And some people sent it to friends of friends. And then I had actually someone who was the CEO of a hospital in Belgium wrote to me and said, I want to bring gratitude buddies to the hospital. So it kind of just somehow felt like it founded itself, like everything came together at the right time. And then it became a little company here in Austria. Yeah.
Nice. Well, and I think that speaks to the need that people have to have a place to express gratitude and to really make a point of thinking about it, because it's so easy to get caught up in your day to day and forget the things that you're grateful for, or kind of just take them for granted, I guess. Especially, we've talked about this before, like after a move, there's a million things you have to do, especially if you're dealing with a new language, new bureaucracy. But it's important to be grateful for things and also to build a community after you move. So, um, do you want to talk about what that is like and how your community helps people with that and other, I guess, whatever else they want to bring to the group?
Yeah. So I guess I would say when I founded Gratitude Buddies, I thought of it as a first cousin to mindfulness, being present, being awake to the experience of being alive, the good stuff, the hard stuff, the whole experience. But I think like life
Yeah.
is always a really good teacher. So around the same time, I started going through so many struggles myself on different
Mm-hmm.
levels. And it really reframed my relationship with gratitude, and it deepened my relationship. I had to kind of come to terms with a new relationship with it. And so for this next phase of Gratitude Buddies, what I want to bring into it is really this sense of belonging, and what does it mean to belong. And I just did a workshop that was really good called Mindfulness of Home and Belonging. And so I want to pull that in. And Gratitude Buddies itself is a space where you can uh, build a profile, connect with people in different parts of the world. You can swap skills. But for this next phase, for 2026, what we're going to be rolling out are these dialogues. A friend of mine is going to be running them, called How Are You Really? Getting into this space of how are you really, not looking. And then we'll end it with, and where's the gratitude, is there a space for reframe. So that's one thing. We just did these mindful walks in the forest, so hopefully we can bring these to other cities as well, because I think there's a space to build community around that. And yeah, and the skill swap, so people can swap skills for free with other buddies as well. Yeah.
That's very, very cool. And it dovetails with what we talked about, how important it is to find a community when you move to a new place. And it's challenging for so many reasons, right? Maybe you're an introvert, maybe there's a language barrier. Um, and people tend to, at mid career, midlife, people tend to have their social groups already set. So, do you want to talk a little about that? I guess from a meditative and gratitude perspective, but also from your own experience.
Yes. I mean, the first
Yeah.
thing is that, of course, it takes time and to
Hmm.
manage expectations. I think this is something that
Yeah.
you and I talked about, that
Hmm.
maybe so I didn't come to Vienna because I really wanted to come to Vienna. I felt like I was kind of pushed here. It wasn't one of
Hmm.
those situations where I felt a lot of agency at the time.
Hmm.
And I know that you're working with a lot of people who are kind of excited to go, and this is something they're building and they're looking forward to. And then
Hmm.
maybe not everything meets your expectations, and you have a lot of like roller coaster, and there's a lot to adjust to. And so I think that, yeah, I think managing expectations, looking for ways to bring presence into the experience, however it's unfolding, because you don't know how it's going to unfold. And then to your point, connecting with people who are going through the same experience, who know the same experience, who can identify with some of the challenges. For me, and this is why I love we did a mindful forest walk, but for me, this is why I love this concept, because we also followed it up with like a coffee. We met at a place afterwards, and I just feel like I want to be with people who share my mindset and my values at this point in life. So what is that going to look like? Is it a yoga community? Like where are your values? So you can get together around hobbies. People get together around hobbies all the time, but personally, I want to get together around values.
Right. Yeah, it's important. It's an interesting approach. And sometimes hobbies can be kind of the gateway to finding people who have those same
Absolutely.
values as well.
Totally.
So, can we talk a little bit about practical tools for making that adjustment for mindset and managing expectations and resilience? Because I have seen and I have been tripped up from time to time by things that in the US would have just like, it would have been nothing. But there's just something about dealing with like that one last having to go back to the parish office with a piece of paper, or, some weird thing that you didn't know, or in my case, having to explain a clogged like washing machine drain line in Portuguese when I didn't really have the words for it. And I was reduced to like making comic book sounds and talking with my hands. And I thought, I write for a living. And here I am talking like a 3-year-old. You know, like sometimes those things can really, they can be discouraging. And you have to have the right mindset around it. And maintaining that mindset is work, right? It is a practice.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it really resonates because I have been here almost 10 years and I still struggle at the post office. Like I still put off going to the post office for whatever
Mm,
reason because it like overwhelms my capacity to go to the post office. And then
right.
we may have talked about this before, but like you're on the phone with somebody and you think that, you understood and then you show up the wrong day, the wrong time for your doctor's appointment.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Yeah.
do, so I think there's a few things involved. It's great if you can have a sense of humor about these things because they are funny and life is meant to be funny. So if you can laugh about them, that's super important. I also think crying is really important. So when I take
God, yes. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I think the crying is really important. In my house, we always say the crying is the healing and not the hurting. So the crying is actually the healing. And if we resist the
Mhm.
crying, we think somehow that it's, whatever it may mean, but it's a reset. It gives your nervous system the opportunity to reset. So within the crying is often
Mhm.
often a small amount of the grieving process going on there, and we talk
Right.
about managing expectations. Leaving our homes has grief involved. No matter what the circumstances are, we will have things to grieve. And if we're not aware of that, if we're not practicing self-compassion with ourselves, if we're not, looking at it when it arises, we're probably doing the opposite, which is stuffing it down, which isn't really
Yeah.
helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been that person who like, you come home at the end of the day and it's just been a day of things that wouldn't phase you in another country and you're like, I'm going to have a cry now. And I've talked to other expats who were like they feel like they failed if they reach that point. And I'm like, no, it's just normal,
It's normal. And
every now and then.
somebody said to me the other day in a conversation, she's not an expat. I don't think she's ever lived out of the area where we grew up. I know her from home. And she said something
Yeah.
to me like, oh, I can imagine that it's really challenging to navigate all these, small things in a different language and in a different culture. And I was like, thank you for saying that. Sometimes I feel like
Right.
it's so overlooked and it's so underappreciated, that extra
Right.
burden of trying to do many things in a culture you don't know, in a language, and
Mhm.
without the social support structure that you would normally have.
Do you want to move to Europe, but you don't know where to start? Or have you started researching different country requirements and you're feeling overwhelmed by all the conflicting information out there? Check out our new membership community. It's a curated learning space where you can discover and compare your options for moving to Europe, get one-to-one support from me, and connect with other Americans who are planning their own moves. You'll also have access to monthly Moving to Europe mini courses, regular live Q&As, and the tools you need to track your progress, along with reliable, up to date information organized so you can find what you need when you need it. You'll also get access to We're Moving to Europe podcast episodes a week before everybody else. And if you sign up now, you get a free 7-day trial to check it out and see if it's right for you. Sign up at We're Moving to Europe on school.com. That's SKOOL.com, or get the link in this episode's show notes. And that's something that my younger son, when he moved to the Netherlands, he said, Mom, he said, just doing normal day to day stuff can be exhausting because there's so many small differences that he had to navigate. And the language barrier wasn't crazy because where he's living, there are a lot of English speakers, but he was trying to learn Dutch and trying to do things in Dutch. And he was like, it's just tiring. It's extra brain work.
Yeah, it's just
So
and
you have to
you know,
plan for that.
the same time, it comes with so many gifts. I mean, that's the thing. It's the
Yes.
whole like holistic, yin and yang of life, because there are so many gifts. There's so much that we
Mhm.
gain. There's so much that I gain as someone who raises her children abroad, but I never wanted to. So there's so much that I grieve too.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and they're concurrent. They happen together.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. One of the things that people come here and they complain about how slow processes are in Portugal or in other countries in Southern Europe. And for me, that was actually a bonus. I knew going in, it was going to be super difficult for me personally because I'm a very impatient person and I always have a lot of things going on. And my days in the US were always planned often to the minute with work and stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to see if I can retrain my nervous system because I know that this chronic pace that I'm following now isn't good for me. And I think the only way to fix it is to immerse myself in a different environment. And boy, has it been a challenge. But I
Oh,
do think that it has been really good for me. I can feel that shift happening now that I've been here a couple of years. And so, one of the things that you and I had talked about before was like the beginner's mind approach that when you go in to a new place, you do have to be open. You have to say, okay, there's going to be challenges, but there's also going to be things that I learn and take away from this that wouldn't happen if I weren't here. So, like, what's your perspective on that?
well, first, I just want to say that arriving and having to retrain your nervous system, and even just coming at all, is such an amazing exercise in self-awareness, right? Because we think that we know ourselves, and we do in certain situations and in certain environments, but moving shakes up our identity in so many ways. And it's almost like we have to be like, who am I, and who am I now, and who am I in this culture? And then like that kind of adjustment. And then I also appreciate what you said, because I have the same experience around the stoplights in Vienna, like the idea of having to just sort of slow down. And when I lived in the US, like we thought like Germany and we thought Austria, like these countries, like what is going on over there? Like there's no cars coming just because there's a red dot, nobody moves. They just stand there. And like it's kind of mocked and it's kind of like considered a joke. And then you arrive and you're like, everybody waits because they're not rushing. They're just taking a moment, and it's not so desperate to get where you're going that you can't just stop and pause and take a breath. So that was like an interesting. Now sometimes I do still run across when it's red, but
Right,
oftentimes I don't. I'm just like, there's just no hurry. You can use it as a moment of mindfulness, actually, um,
right.
if you want. And so yeah, so and
Nice.
then back to the beginner's mind. So in Buddhism, the beginner's mind is the idea of simply, yes, seeing something with fresh eyes, going back almost to like that childlike state where you're learning something, fresh from the beginning, and what are you bringing into it. So we often say, like with a mindfulness class, for example, this has happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to anybody who's taught mindfulness. Somebody, and I've done it too, by the way, somebody will come in and be like, yeah, but I know that, yeah, I know how to do that, I've been to that class. And the beginner's mind is, hey, there's something new everywhere, there's something to learn everywhere. Like, let me be open and see what's here for me, even in my own responses.
Yeah, yeah. And, I see that sometimes a lot with people who are just at the beginning of their research journey on where they want to go. And I'll talk to them and they want to tell me everything they've already found out, everything they already know.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that too. I'm like, these are the things I've already found out. I'm totally prepared. And then you get here. I mean, it's good to prepare. You should prepare. But then you get here and realize, oh, there's a zillion things that I really couldn't prepare for because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Oh my gosh, it's
So
like having a baby, right?
yeah,
Totally.
exactly. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So, we had talked earlier about maybe trying a short gratitude meditation if you're game for that. I would just say to people, like, if you're listening to this in the car or on a bike, maybe don't. Maybe save it for home. But yeah, did you want to lead us through something, maybe just like a minute or something?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'd be happy to do that. So let's close our eyes or lower our gaze if you're in a space where it's safe for you to do so. And if you're seated, you can put your feet on the floor or find a comfortable position and draw your attention to your breath. Let's just take a moment to bring our full sense of presence and awareness into this moment. Maybe take a long, full breath in, holding it at the top for a second or two, and then exhaling completely. And on the exhale, you may see if you can release any tension that you're holding in the jaw or the neck or the shoulders or anywhere else in the body. And let's see if we can take a moment to draw our attention to something small that we appreciate today. Maybe something from our morning routine, a comfort of home, or something that offers us a bit of support in our daily life. And if you're struggling to think of something, you can always bring your attention back to the breath and see if you can extend gratitude just for the next breath. Just for whatever it means to be right here, right now, alive in this moment. And now you can take 3 last full breaths at your own pace. And whenever you're ready, bring your attention back to your surroundings.
That was very nice. Thank you. I needed that. That was perfect. So
I'm so happy. I mean, it actually does often change our state, right? Just like a few minutes of intentional breathing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the sort of thing you can just kind of get in the habit of doing. And so maybe before you go into the immigration office with that paperwork or the post office or whatever it is that you're maybe stressing a little bit about, maybe just do a reset before you go in or after you come out or both, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And I also, like, on the flip side of that, sometimes a gratitude meditation is so good at changing our state or drawing our attention to, okay, not everything's broken in this moment. And then sometimes it's also okay to be like, this is where I am right now. I'm frustrated, and that's okay. That's
Right.
that kind of self-kindness. And yeah, so I use one or the other.
Yeah, that's a good point because, yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is frustrating. The rewards are good, but
Yeah.
frustration is going to be part of the package too, and you
Part of
have to
the school
acknowledge
life,
it.
right? You got to work with
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So, to kind of sum up, what would you recommend for people who are moving to a new place? Maybe they're like being super proactive about it and enthusiastic, or maybe they're like you, they're moving because of circumstances and not necessarily opting into a particular destination just because. So, like, what are two or three, I guess, steps you would recommend for them or things to remember just to kind of stay grounded and be able to build gratitude and cultivate community?
So we're talking about for people who are in the process before they've moved.
I would say, yeah, in the process, or maybe even after they've arrived, or maybe that's a different set of recommendations.
Well, it's funny because when you're in the process, right? I mean, if you're going because you've chosen to go, there's probably a lot of excitement. At the end of the day, I think piece of advice applies for both situations, and that is that there are always going to be mixed feelings in anything. And so one of the things we did in the mindfulness of home and belonging is about sort of learning to accept the totality of our experience, our our positive ones, our difficult ones, and within that is learning to accept the totality of emotional experiences. And so once we kind of get used to that, I think that's really powerful. And the other thing I worked on with people in that workshop was this idea that we can be flexible with what it means to be home and what our definition of home is. And so it's something we can, like belonging is something we can lean into or we can lean away from. These are choices. We have more choice in that than we may think we do. And so it's something, so if you feel you arrive in a place and you're like, oh my God, I don't belong here, it's actually something we can cultivate, that sense of belonging. It's a feeling, and it's not, there's a lot of room within that. It's not necessarily black or white. And what home is, our definition of home changes throughout our lives and it expands throughout our lives and it may encompass multiple places. And so there's really, yeah, there's a lot of space to move around in there. That's what I want to say.
Nice. Nice. The potential to create new ideas, new concepts for yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. And to
Nice.
accept, this like all like this wave of change, and who am I in these changes and how can I cultivate the belonging that I seek outside of myself, within myself.
Ooh, I like that. Very, very cool. Well, Abbie, we will put the link to Gratitude Buddies in the show notes for anybody who wants to check that out. And thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today about the mindset aspect of moving to a new country and finding community. And thank you so much for making time to do this with us.
Yeah, I would be happy
Okay.
to see people on Gratitude Buddies. It has a free profile, so, and it's
Mhm.
something that we're continually working on. And thank you so much for inviting me, Casey.
Yeah,
It's been
thanks.
fun and I enjoyed
It's
it.
been great. Thank you. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and please drop your questions in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more tips about planning your move from the US to a country in Europe. Our producer and editor is Magdalena Lass at Unscripted Creatives. Our music was composed by Sage Barton, and I'm Casey Kelly. See you again soon at We're Moving to Europe.